It's Tuesday, July 1st. I'm Will for your Political Lunch Tuesday snack. Today we'll be looking at Iraq and Afghanistan. Welcome back to your Political Lunch Tuesday snack. We mentioned yesterday that domestic issues like energy and the economy are topping the list of voter concerns this time around. Well, I'm willing to bet it's a different story for the 150,000 or so U.S. troops still stationed in Iraq and Afghanistan. While the conflicts in those countries are ongoing, the presidential candidates aren't spending much time addressing those issues, at least not publicly. We'll start with Afghanistan and a question posed to John McCain during a press conference yesterday. A Times reporter asked McCain if he's concerned about reports of growing al-Qaeda influence in Afghanistan and if the U.S. has sufficient military resources to combat that problem. McCain's response, a concise yes and yes. Last week, in the time-honored tradition of announcing the really bad news on Friday, the Pentagon released a report on the situation in Afghanistan, and there was little good news. Taliban militants have apparently regrouped, and the government has no capacity to control the country outside of Kabul. U.S. military commanders there say they need more troops, and that can only be provided by withdrawing forces from Iraq. Incidentally, this was the first comprehensive review of the situation in Afghanistan since 2001. So McCain yesterday was terse, perhaps because that Pentagon report is somewhat contrary to his campaign platform on the two conflicts, Iraq and Afghanistan. McCain has long contended that Iraq is the most important conflict in terms of U.S. national security, while Obama has described Iraq as an expensive diversion from our commitments in Afghanistan, which he views as the central front in the war on terror. The Wall Street Journal reports that Obama has proposed sending 2 additional combat brigades to Afghanistan, that's 7,000 to 10,000 troops, while also increasing non-military aid there by more than $1 billion per year. McCain, on the other hand, has talked of building permanent U.S. bases, expanding the number of NATO troops there, and expanding U.S. training of the Afghan national military. On to Iraq now. A couple of weeks ago, the Iraqi foreign minister said that, as far as he could tell, Obama and McCain would take roughly the same approach to Iraq once elected president. Now, that's led some to believe that Obama had privately communicated a much more moderate plan for Iraq than what he's laid out on the campaign trail. As the New Yorker's George Packer notes this week, the Obama campaign plan calls for withdrawing all combat troops from Iraq within 16 months. Citing the gains that have been made in that country in recent months, such as decreased violence, the Sunnis' newfound opposition to al-Qaeda, the Sadr militia ceasefire, Packer predicts that Obama, if elected, would recalibrate his strategy, keeping troops in Iraq longer, if only to maintain that fragile situation. McCain, meanwhile, has long advocated keeping troops in Iraq as long as he deems necessary. He's not offered anything in the way of a timetable, nor has he said what benchmarks could lead to U.S. troop withdrawal, but he has taken credit for the so-called surge plan that some have credited with making those incremental gains. At the end of the day, the reality of the Obama or McCain administration approaches to Iraq would likely be far more similar in practice than the vastly different principles espoused by the candidates on the campaign trail. That is to say, it's likely that Obama won't be able to withdraw troops as quickly as promised, nor will McCain be able to maintain the current troop presence without offering some glimpse of an end game. So maybe it's Afghanistan on which the two candidates will find their most notable difference in real policy. It is an imposing challenge. After all, no president, from Ronald Reagan to George W. Bush, has managed to secure a lasting peace in Afghanistan. That's it for your Political Lunch Tuesday snack. Rob and I are right back here tomorrow. One last completely unrelated note to our Canadian viewers. Happy Canada Day.